When we first meet Artemis, she is confident, she's a little cold, she's definitely sarcastic, and she uses a lot of this coldness, this sarcasm to cover up the fact that she's afraid. She comes from a family of villains, her sister, her mother, and her father, and while her mother may no longer be a villain, that is the life path that she has been set up for. And so Artemis's whole character arc throughout that first season is carving out an identity for herself in being a hero. But the second season of Young Justice was all about changes. So they chose to strip Artemis of her identity as a hero. And Artemis is unique. She uses her first name as her hero name. So to take that away from her is to also take a true part of herself, more than any other hero in my opinion in this show. And it is throughout this season that we have to say goodbye to Artemis. When we catch up with Artemis and Wally in the beginning of season 2, we see that both are actually completely retired from being superheroes. During the events of the tie-in video game that most people didn't play, once again, hate the decision they did this in a tie-in video game, but during the tie-in video game, Tula dies. That was Aqualad's love interest, if you remember from the first season. And it was this death that inspired both of them to take a step back from being heroes and to focus on going to college, living a normal life, and just being college-aged kids. The idea of being a superhero and putting all that responsibility on them was shifted to the side. And for the most part, they were happy. This is a couple that has been together for the last 5 years and relatively new to leaving the game, but they seemed genuinely happy.
Happy Valentine's Day, Artemis.
You remembered.
Come on, what kind of jerk would I be if I forgot Valentine's Day? For the 5th year in a row.
And while it seemed like Artemis could leave the hero life behind and, much like her mother, move on from her days dressing up in costumes and running on rooftops, she wasn't fully ready. For reference, her mother only fully retired due to the fact that she was put into a wheelchair. It was more forced retirement than anything else that made her reevaluate her life choices. This was Artemis trying to willingly move on. And we see that she is clearly struggling with that later in the season, because when Nightwing gives her the opportunity to come out of retirement, she nearly jumps at the chance. And it's not like Wally was perfect with this either. He was also in and out of retirement constantly, especially when Impulse showed up, but it's just a few missions. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, a lot can go wrong. A lot can go wrong. Now, I won't hold you all in suspense here. If you're watching this video, you probably know what's up. Artemis isn't actually dead here, but rather faking being dead so that she can go undercover to join Calder in exposing the light and figuring out all their secret plans that involve the Reach. And as well, this episode just serves as a nice reintroduction of Artemis. Because for the most part throughout this show, she'll be missing, and this is one of the only few times we're actually going to get to see her suited up as Artemis the superhero. It's getting really confusing considering she shares her superhero name with her actual name. This is kind of annoying. Right, back on topic. Artemis herself dying sends the team into shock. Not only does Artemis fake die, but one of their teammates in Lagoon Boy is kidnapped. The team's morale is at an all-time low, and everything is going terribly. But everything is going exactly as planned from Nightwing's end, and by extension, Artemis's end. You see, Artemis was actually asked to be brought back to help go undercover to help Calder, as I had mentioned earlier. And in doing so, she has to give up the identity of Artemis, at least for a little bit, and she has to exchange it for a brand new identity in Tigress. And it's not just exchanging the costume and the suit, it's also exchanging her face, exchanging her voice, and exchanging her personality.
More impressive trick is how you got something so specific from Zatanna,
Without revealing who or what it was for.
She has to change who she is fundamentally in order to become Tigress. At least with Aqualad, he gets to keep his face, he gets to keep his kind of cool demeanor, he gets to still somewhat be himself. Artemis has to embody an entirely new person. She has to bring on a completely new identity relative to who she was before. She has to throw away the identity that she has spent so long building up for herself, the one that she has built as a hero, the one that she has fought so hard to build for herself outside of the shadow of her family's legacy. And in doing this, at least temporarily, she has to give up a relationship that she has been cultivating and building for 5+ years. To the best of our knowledge, she has not spent as long as she's going to spend throughout this season away from Wally. The two characters have been practically inseparable since the end of the first season. This is going to be a large change for both characters, and she's putting herself at a lot of risk doing this. What's so ironic with the identity that Artemis chooses to adopt when going undercover is that it's Tigress, the same identity her mother had spent so long fighting to avoid being. The one that she had spent so long fighting for her children to have a chance not to be. And she felt like she finally won when she didn't have to deal with Artemis going into the life as a villain, but rather a hero relative to her daughter Jade. And to see her dead, that hurts on a level that she can't quite describe. And Jade obviously wants revenge. That's her little sister. And despite all of Jade's faults, she at least loves her. Sportsmaster, he's a bitch. I'm gonna keep it 100. This man only cares because it looks bad on his reputation that another villain's son killed his daughter. That's all he cares about. I really hate this guy, but it's kind of funny though. I think it's very poignant that in Artemis's first outing as Tigress, her entire mission is to get into what is the defunct Mount Justice and blow up the place. It is a way of destroying not only her past, but her past self. There is a monument to Artemis that is kept in Mount Justice, much like there is a monument that is kept for all of the fallen heroes there. One that many of the Justice Leaguers and members of the team often go to visit and to reminisce about. And their entire job is to blow up a place that was once considered to be their home. Artemis may not have spent a whole lot of time there or lived there as opposed to someone like Superboy, but you could call it something of a second home. And in Artemis being the one to pull the trigger, to blow up Mount Justice, to blow up a place where her boyfriend used to keep all of his stupid, useless trophies, as he calls them now, but at one point they were important to him. At one point this place was highly important to them. And to blow it up and to blow up her own monument to her somewhat dead self, she was in effect killing Artemis, killing the girl whose one biggest fear was becoming a villain just like the rest of her family, and whose one goal was to be a hero. She was killing that girl and choosing to become Tigress, to bring it on full time if it means doing what needs to be done to be a better hero. But you know what? Artemis is good at it. She's good at being Tigress. In the episodes that we see her commanding Black Manta's fleet, she's good at blending in with the society. She's good at doing her job as Tigress. A little too good. It runs in her blood. It's the easiest option for her to default onto, and she's just very good at it. But just because Artemis is good at it doesn't mean she's enjoying it. This is arguably some of the most miserable times of Artemis's life, having to be undercover. And it only gets worse when McGann absolutely mind wrecks Calder because she believes that Calder killed one of her best friends and took her away from her. Yeah, that sentence doesn't make much sense now, does it? Either way, Artemis has to then convince McGann to not only leave, but then has to try and figure out how she's going to help Calder get his mind back because the dude is completely catatonic and his father is going to go on a warpath. And not to mention, in the midst of all of that, Artemis is still having to deal with her own internal struggle of giving up her identity. This whole situation has left Artemis feeling extraordinarily guilty. Not only does she feel guilty about being involved with Nightwing's plot to go undercover and lying to a lot of her friends, including McGann, she also feels guilty for the fact that Calder just had his entire mind completely destroyed, because she was complicit in the act of not telling McGann, and that act directly led to McGann breaking Calder's mind. And whether or not you believe that that is warranted, I personally don't, but I think that's how she felt in the moment. And she also feels incredibly guilty for betraying what she believed she promised to Wally in giving up being a superhero. Even though that was such a big part of her character and a big part of who she was, she tried her best to walk away from it. But I don't know if that was necessarily fair, nor if it was wholeheartedly her idea. I know for a fact that Wally wanted to leave the life for sure. He was done with it. He was done with the idea of being a hero, and it was not something that he wanted anymore. But I am firmly believing that Artemis wanted to continue to be a hero, and it's what she wanted to do because it had become so ingrained in her. So when she chose to step away and chose to walk away, she was choosing to give up a part of herself for her relationship with Wally. And now she was once again feels like she has to give up another part of herself in her relationship with Wally to once again be a hero. And in doing so, she also has to be a villain now. So she's not even getting to be Artemis the hero, she now has to be Tigress the villain. She has basically fragmented herself so many times, she feels lost. Her identity is, for lack of a better term, gone. And now she has to figure out a way to piece it back together. And with anything that has ever been broken, you know when you put it back together, it's never going to be the same. And sometimes you can never put it back together, and instead you have to choose to make something new. And I think that's the choice that Artemis has to make throughout the rest of this season, is the choice to make something new out of her identity and to find a new anchor for who she wants to be.
How did it all go so wrong so fast? I'd say I have no one to blame but myself, except it's getting a little hard to remember exactly who myself is.
Artemis feels like going undercover as Tigress, she's given up a piece of herself that she might never get back. Every time she looks in the mirror, she might see herself, but nobody else sees her. They all see Tigress. And she has to keep up the act 24/7 because she is always being watched. She has no chance to just be Artemis. She is starting to mourn the loss of her relationship, even though it's not technically over or gone and it's waiting for her the moment she comes back. She's still frustrated that she is missing out on it so that she could be undercover. She's frustrated that she rushed herself back to being a hero as soon as Nightwing made the call. She is frustrated that she's in a position right now where Simon is about to read her mind and potentially find out her and Calder are traitors because McGann decided to destroy his mind because the entire season is wrapped up in a ton of secrets and she's a part of these secrets and she stuck herself right in the middle because she could not wait to be a hero again, because she could not let go of that piece of her identity. And in not being able to let go of being a hero, she threw herself into a situation where she had to throw away everything that she had fought and worked so hard for, and now potentially is going to have it all blow up in her face in the worst way possible. But thankfully, quick thinking and the fact that Simon is, well, an idiot, allowed her to get around the Simon problem and is also going to allow her to fix Calder's mind the proper way by bringing in McGann, which means she now has to go kidnap one of her only close friends. So, of course, with the help of everybody's favorite list aficionado Deathstroke, Huntress has finally set out to take care of McGann, capture her, bring her back, so that she can help Aqualad regain control of his mind. This isn't complicated at all, but in order to most efficiently restore Aqualad's mind, McGann, because she is so unsure of her powers after mind-breaking Calder, decides to bring Artemis with her. And we get a nice nod to Artemis drowning once again. This would have been really funny if I had an Artemis drowned counter like I used to do back in the day, but I didn't have enough foresight for that, or I was too lazy. It was one of the two. Either way, in Calder's absolutely wrecked mind, he is pretty much all over the place. And while Artemis quickly gets on to the fact that you can't drown or be hurt here, McGann is overwhelmed by her guilt and cannot bring herself to do just about anything, as she believes herself fully responsible for this, which she is, but she's not doing anything about it. She is choosing to wallow in her own guilt instead of actively going to help her friend, which is what Artemis spends the rest of this portion of the episode doing. She finds Calder and is actively trying to talk to him and convince him to come back to his mind, or I guess himself, and to try and get him to fix himself and get McGann to stop wallowing in her own self-pity and to use her powers to help her friend.
You want to blame yourself? Fine, but only if you're willing to do something about it.
But it was in this episode that, for the first time in a very long time, Artemis finally felt like she was being herself again. Despite the fact that she started the episode by looking in the mirror and hating the thing that she saw, even though it was herself, and how frustrated she was with the choices that she had made, she was finally starting to feel like something was going right, and like she was once again finding her identity, because she felt lost for a majority of this season. And it's very understandable. When you go undercover, when you assume the identity of someone else, when you have to force yourself to be someone that you're not, it is very hard to keep an idea of who you are in your own mind. Even if you can look in the mirror and see yourself, it's even worse if everybody else sees something different. And so for Artemis to finally start to be able to reclaim herself once again is beautiful. And it starts to come full circle when her family show up to avenge her. Well, her father's there to avenge his pride and, of course, his reputation in the villain world, but her sister is there to avenge her. And it's in this moment that not only does Artemis once again get to reconnect with Jade and continue that sister relationship, which is complicated to say the least, but it's clear that the two have love for each other. So in that context, she also gets to reclaim part of her identity. Her family gets to know that she is alive and doing well, and that she is going to be okay. And with the added benefit that Jade is now also not gonna assassinate Calder, so that's also a pretty cool moment.
Artemis is your daughter. Can't you feel her presence here?
I don't even feel your presence here.
He's hopeless, and I don't know why I'm surprised.
Sportsmaster is such a horrible father. This dude can't even tell when his daughter is being his daughter. He has to literally get his ass beat to understand that, oh, that's my baby girl. Like, be so for real, dude. And it's also worth noting that Artemis's mom gets to know that her daughter is not dead, but I can only imagine, like, you can't unlive that grief. I can't even imagine. But that all leads us to the two-part finale of this show, and one of the last appearances for Tigress throughout this show. Planned appearances anyways. Artemis is finally at the end of everything. All of these months of hard work, all of these months of having to hide herself, of questioning who she is, of what she sees in the mirror, of giving up her relationship, of giving up her time, giving up parts of her sanity and parts of herself. She is finally ready to see the culmination of all of it, and that is the severe infighting between the Reach and the Light, and how their plans are about to blow up in their faces. But it comes a little prematurely due to the fact that Ra's al Ghul unfortunately notices the charm that Zatanna had made to make Tigress look like Tigress and not like Artemis, because Ra's is immortal and apparently really, really smart. I mean, he's a Batman villain, so let's be so for real, he is gonna be that smart. But in all honesty, this little reveal didn't do much for the Light or the Reach at all, as the team had pretty much planned to ambush them anyways and expose them both to each other, have a huge infighting between the two of them, and all of the hard work that not only Calder but Artemis have put in being undercover has come to fruition, and now they can both return to being heroes. And it is truly in this moment that Artemis can reclaim her identity as Artemis. Once again, her using her actual real name for her superhero name is kind of annoying, Just kind of annoying. Either way, she gets to be exactly who she wants to be, a hero, and she gets to go back to having her relationship with the person that she loves. And even with the threat of the Reach going nuclear and trying to absolutely wipe out all life on Earth on the planet, her and Wally are still in good spirits because they're together again and they get to go back to being who they're supposed to be. I firmly believe that based on the comments Artemis made at the end of the finale, that whether or not Wally was going to continue with the superhero life, Artemis was going to continue to be a superhero. She makes mention that the world will always need saving, and so I don't think she was going to put down the bow even after the world was saved from this threat specifically.
We're definitely coming back here, babe. You know, when we don't have a world to save.
There will always be a world to save. Now drop me and go.
In this moment, I believe Artemis has fully reforged her identity. She is not the same person that we left off with at the end of season 2, or the same person that she was before she retired for the first time. This is a person that has looked at their life and decided that they need to be a hero. She is accepting that she needs her relationship with Wally, but that she also needs to continue to still be a superhero. And so whether Wally chooses to retire or not, she's not going to let him make that decision for her. Instead, she is still going to love him, but she's going to continue her hero work regardless, because at her core, that is who she is. Tigress, Artemis, whatever the title is, she is a hero. And nothing is going to ever take that away from her or to change that. She has fought so hard to change the reputation of what she was supposed to be from her family. She was supposed to be a villain, just like her father, just like her mother, and just like her sister. But instead, Artemis was able to flip the script and become a hero. She was able to let go and shed the fear of failure and to fully embrace being a hero. And she's not going to let that go, even for the man that she loves. And she's going to continue to love him and refuse to let that go as well, because she's no longer going to let anyone else dictate who Artemis Croc is. At least that's what I gathered from watching this like 4 separate times this week. But all of that would ultimately be completely derailed when the world needed 3 of the fastest men alive to help dissipate one of the best bombs that the Reach had created. And in doing so, the slowest of the group, Wally, was used as the energy outlet for the bomb, and so he was utterly erased from the timeline. And much like Artemis was earlier in the season, he's just gone permanently. And in that moment, I believe Artemis makes the choice to also go forever. And I don't mean Artemis the character, I mean Artemis as in the hero title, as in the green outfit, the bow and arrow, the getup and everything. I firmly believe that's when she made the decision to no longer be Artemis the hero, but rather to choose something different. And just when she had gotten everything together, it all went belly up. She lost one of her anchor points in Wally, the man that she had loved. This was a very early and formative relationship in her life. It was one of her first real boyfriends. The two were together for 5 years. They were planning on getting married. They were extraordinarily close, and to lose Wally was absolutely devastating, especially when she had just reforged her identity. She had figured out exactly what she wanted and exactly who she was going to be once again. And she just had that ripped away from her completely. And I think it was in this moment that she had to make that decision to separate herself fully from Artemis in order to move on and heal.
Artemis was Wally's partner. I need some distance. I need a change. So let's see how Tigress does.
As a hero?
As a blonde.
And I think it is incredibly powerful that Artemis chose Tigress to be her next identity, not as a villain this time, but as a hero. To take her family mantle, the one that for so many years had represented evil, had represented villainy and had represented pain and strife, and turn it into a measure for rebirth and regrowth and a way for her to continue to be a hero, while also letting go of the past, letting go of her relationship with Wally to some degree, and being able to move on. Obviously, season 3 did its whole thing with their relationship, and I'll discuss that when I get around to season 3. But from what it looked like in season 2, this was her trying to move on as best as she could. And I think it was incredibly powerful to choose to make Tigress that new identity, to reclaim the family mantle and to make it something better. It is truly beautiful. And it is with this that I say my final goodbye to one of my favorite characters. So, goodbye, Artemis, and hello, Tigress. Thank you all so much for watching. If you leave a like, helps out the video a lot. If you want to hit the new hype button, if you have access to that, the hype button YouTube seems to value a lot right now, so please hit that if it's available to you. A subscribe also helps out a lot. A dislike and some comments with constructive criticism will also help me be a better creator for all of you, which is much appreciated. I have a Patreon, link in the description. You'll get to see these videos a little bit early. You'll get to see them without the changes and, copyright changes I have to make for YouTube. And it just really helps to support me as a creator. So do so if you feel like you can. It's $1 a month. And for those in the $5 and above tier, I try to shout their names out in as many videos as possible. So without further ado, shout out Athena, shout out Ethan, The Real Medusa, Gremladier, Davidson, Kane, John, Demetrius, Metal Monk, Wes, Oscar, McGann, eSibert13, Gabriel Lafonte, Video Gamer 75, Dakota Ross, and Donovan Gomez, and MC Bomb 27. You all are amazing. Hope you'll have an absolutely fantastic day.